So, hope all of us are doing fine. My name is Ernest, and this is Ernest Sciences and Mathematics TV channel. In this particular discussion, we're going to look at the concept of the large intestine. And of course, I'm going to use illustrative images, which of course, I'm going to put a disclaimer that I do not own copyright to these specific images, but I'm going to use them for illustrative and educational purposes. And I'd like to encourage our members to visit the site of Pearson Education. And of course, there you are going to find educative and informative details, of course, materials on the human anatomy. And of course, I found them appropriate for these illustrative purposes, and I'd like to encourage our members, in case you need additional information, kindly visit their site so that you can be getting that one done. So that one having been said, we're going to look at the overall plan of this specific section of the digestive system. And of course, for the large intestines, these are going to be receiving material or the digestive materials from the ileum section. As we had said that the small intestines basically consist of the duodenum, jejunum, and then the jejunum, and then we have going to have this specific section referred to as ileum, which is going to drain into the large intestine at this specific point. Now, at this particular point that I'm encircling, we're going to have a valve-like sphincter, which is going to open into this specific section of the large intestine. And of course, this is going to be sometimes referred to as ileocecal valve. And we're going to see that it's going to drain materials from the small intestine into the larger intestine at this specific point. Now, overall, the general function of this largest intestine is going to be absorbing some additional materials like water, which is going to be required by the body. And of course, we're going to see that some of the activities involved, like additional nutrients which are required by the body, are going to be absorbed in this specific section of the large intestine. Now, of course, there's going to be also a major role of a concentration of undigested food and waste materials from this specific subsequent or rather initial process of digestion. They're going to be emptied into the large intestine to facilitate final removal from the body system. Now, I'm going to divide this one into three specific sections, and these are going to be the cecum, which is going to be the blind ended sac at this specific point. Now, this is not being illustrated, but at the opening of this valve-like sphincter, which I mentioned, of valve-like opening at this particular point, this particular section is referred to as the cecum, and this is going to be a sac-like structure that extends from the point of attachment of this particular intestine, and it's going to contain this particular structure that we refer to as the appendix. Now, this is very significant, especially in the digestion of luminous, of course, animals, or rather animals which, of course, we're going to see later in digestion in animals, but this is very significant. But in human, it's going to be involved in the production of lymphocytes, and we're going to see later in that specific part of perhaps the circulatory system, but that's one of the major functions of this section that we refer to as the appendix. Now, in this case, also, these particular materials being drained into this cecum are going to proceed through these four stages of other section of the large intestine. Now, we're going to see that this can be broadly divided into the ascending colon, the transverse colon, the descending colon, and then we're going to have this specific sigmoid section of the colon that is ending up at the rectum at this specific anal opening towards this specific end. So in this case, these are the four major divisions of the large intestine. Of course, we have seen the cecum being at this specific point, and then we have the ascending, the transverse, the descending, and the sigmoid section of this colon. And then finally, we're going to have this specific section referred to as the rectum. So my three divisions basically consist of the cecum, these four subdivisions, and then we're going to have the rectum at the final end. So we're going to see that there are some muscles involved in the holding this specific section of the digestive system, which is a large intestine, into place. And I'd mentioned that these are ciliary membranes, which are referred to as, of course, the mesenteries. And I'm going to show another illustration, of course, which is going to be very much essential in trying to hold this specific membranes together. You can see that there's a large supply of some of the materials, of course, which are going to be providing or nourishing this specific section, and perhaps taking some of the nutrients away from this large intestine in that specific sense. So I'm going to look at this specific section in an exclusive way, of course, which is part of the rectum. Now, this ascending, transverse, descending, and this sigmoid section are going to consist of a cross section which we have already looked at in some of our videos on the concept of the service of the alimentary canal. And of course, they are going to involve in various processes which are going to be similar to the other ones that we have discussed. Now, in this particular case, we're going to look at this last section of the rectum, which of course is going to assist us appreciate how food is taken out of this digestive system in that specific final stage. Now, before we look at that final section of the rectum, of course, we're going to see that at this particular section, we're going to have absorption of some vitamins like the vitamin K5 and biotin, and of course, some of the reabsorption of our water through the process of osmosis taking place at this specific section before they end up being ejected as fecal materials to the environment. Now, in this case, of course, that's going to be more appreciated, and there's going to be involvement of course, the neural system, which is going to be coordinating these specific activities, and they are going to respond appropriately in case of a need maybe for absorption of water and maybe elimination of waste into the environment in that specific case. Now, the basic plan of the rectum basically consists of this specific section, so the anal canal, and then we have the internal and the external sphincter at this specific point. Now, these are going to be containing the internal sphincter or external sphincter and the internal sphincter, which are made up of smooth and the skeletal muscles in that particular order. So therefore, we are going to have the internal sphincter located at this specific point, made up of this range of smooth muscles. And then we're going to have the external sphincter made up of this specific range of skeletal muscles, as we're going to see. And these are going to coordinate in order to facilitate the release of these waste materials from this particular section of the rectum. And of course, we're going to see that this is going to form a final bit of the process of digestion. And of course, it's going to go in that particular cycle as we have discussed in various ranges of our videos. Now, in this case, generally, I decided that these particular organs are kept in place by various range of muscles, which of course are going to be serous membranes situated along and at the particular sections of the body, which are referred to as mesenteries. This is basically an overall cross-section of the various muscles, serous membranes, which we had talked about, and they're going to hold the various organs and different parts of the body, as we're going to look at in this specific case. So we have a range of them, and of course we can see that from this specific part we have got the lesser omentum and other ones like the mesocolon and other transverse, of course this specific greater omentum and the this mesenteric proper and other sections which have of course been illustrated in this specific case. And of course they are going to ensure that the various organs located at this specific point are not tangling, and they are held in place in order to allow for particularly expansion perhaps, and expansion and then returning to their normal shape, to ensure that the overall activities which are being coordinated at this specific point go in a smoother way, in order to ensure that the overall concept of digestion is facilitated in a smooth and of course elaborate way. So that basically forms a final bit of the discussion on the concept of human digestion. And of course we're going to look at other areas which are going to be associated with this specific aspect of digestion, especially on the other systems which are going to coordinate with the digestive system in order to ensure that the human life is sustained. Now in this case I talked about the concept of materials being absorbed. So basically they are going to be taken to various parts of the body through the blood transport system, and that is going to be collaborating in collaboration with the cardiovascular system, and that is going to be of course happening in this specific sequence. So we're going to see a number of systems collaborating together to ensure that basic homeostatic processes and other biological processes are taking place in that coordinated form, and that's going to form a broader basis of the human anatomy and physiology. So that is it for now, guys. By God bless you. Catch us in our next video.